This is a beginner's guide for V Rising. I'm just going to jump right into things, okay? So when you first start up the game and you go to play, there are a bunch of different options here. And the basic thing to this, do you want to play on a server? This is like an online survival game. Do you want to play like Conan the Exiles or one of those, any of those other crazy ones, The Forest, whatever? Do you want to play with other people? Do you want to play by yourself? Do you want to play with just your friends, okay? You can host a dedicated server. You can play a private game, and you can play online. So a private game would be a normal world where it's just you, and you can set how many people can join and clan sizes. And the benefits to this is you can go into the advanced game settings and you can do all sorts of crazy stuff like any other survival game. You can make it so a building doesn't cost anything. I mean, you can do pretty much everything with custom settings to make it however you want. When you go to online play, you are at the, whatever you call it, at the whim of other people, however they set up their servers. But when you go to online play, there are 4 different options. PvE is, obviously if you just want to chill and just hang out and just build stuff and play and don't really feel like being stressed out. PvP, it's pretty obvious. You get to go run around and fight people when you see them. Full loot PvP means that when you kill the people, they actually drop all their items, obviously, which most people are familiar with that. And then duo PvP, I'm not entirely familiar with, actually. I'm not, maybe clan size is 1 or 2. Actually, I'm not 100% sure. I never tested that one out very much. But these are your options for that. And then when you click one, you can click Find Servers, and it'll show you just what's available. And you can see how many players are there, what's the max clan size, how active is it. So you can get an idea. Now, why does this matter? This matters a lot, actually, because your character is not persistent. Your character is tied to the server, okay? It's like Minecraft, where you go to a new server and this is a new character. Although the difference between this and Minecraft is this game has progression. So it's a big commitment because you unlock crafting recipes and things as you go, and that's bound to that character. And you make a new one, you got to start all over. So if I go to any of these and I go to join one of them, join game, then when you go in here, you'll go to the character creation screen, and the character creation screen, you worry about as much as you think you are going to be playing. If you think that you're going to be playing on this server longer term, then obviously take your time and make your character look however you want. Pretty straightforward stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It's very obvious how this works. So I will leave that up to you to make your character look how you want them to look. After that tutorial, I'm going to skip the tutorial. It'll tell you what to do. You go through this, and then you'll end up in the real world. Now I've swapped over to a character that has more progression, so I can explain more stuff about what to do once you get out of there. So once you get out of the tutorial zone, it'll be this one or that one you'll come in from. You get to pick, you want to go to the eastern or western Farbane Woods. When you first come out, there'll be a Vampire Waygate. These are fast travel stations. You can fast travel anytime you discover one of these. Like you can see, I have one here and one here and one here. You can go to one of these and then fast travel to another, but you cannot have resources with you. If you have items like leather and bones and random stuff with you, it will not let you fast travel. So it's more about going somewhere than it is about returning from somewhere. So you go out and you're like, I want to go out to the Dunley farmlands. I'm going to fast travel there, collect all the resources I want, and then run back to my base. Now, the main thing in this game that you're going to want to do is these quests up here at the top left. You're going to want to do these. This is literally how you progress through the game and you get better items and stuff. They will give you the blueprints for progression. That's like the #1 way to progress through the game. The other thing is when you go around and you kill people and stuff, they'll drop research recipes and stuff that you'll unlock later on in order to get additional items and additional structures and things for your base, which brings me to the base. So this is a castle. These story quests up here will walk you through how to get to the point of having a castle. And they'll want you to get resources, do things like that. A lot of the times when you get these things, resources will be there. You go out and you just destroy stuff like plants and trees and stone and stuff. You can do this with weapons. You can do this with your hands at first, at least for lower level stuff like stone and wood and stuff like that. And then it'll want you to bring them back. Other resources will be obtained from enemies and stuff. And really important to know, when you open the map, if you mouse over the different places that you discover, it'll tell you what loot you get. And this is really important later on for some of these quests, because it'll want you to make something that uses, say, grave dust or something, or whetstones or stone dust or something. And then you'll be able to see, or like leather, for example, you'll be able to see where you can just get it by mousing over different places. That's really, really important to know for this progression. And eventually you'll be able to place this castle heart, and this will be like the, center of your base. Not to be center, but it's the heart of your castle. You can have 2 of them, the 2 castles. And if you're playing online, it is very important. After you place this, you're going to want to go gather a bunch of stone, kill some enemies to get some blood essence. The blood essence is not very hard, by the way. I mean, you kill like 20 enemies or something, and you have enough blood essence to completely max out your borders for your castle, probably. Mainly just the stone. So what you're going to do then is, if you're playing online, you're immediately going to want to max out your borders. You're going to want to just put down as many as you can to reserve your castle space, because other people will come by and grief you, basically, and interrupt your castle space and make it so you can't place it how you want to. So you would go out and you would expand your castle by border, and then, clicking and expanding the border like that. And then just reserve everything you want to reserve this as soon as possible, so nobody can come in and cut your base in half and do weird stuff. But if you're playing online, if you're playing single player, doesn't really matter. Also, when you get to this point of having a castle, you're going to want to put it somewhere more central. Do not do what I did as a noob, which was I came out of the waygate, did some quests, immediately placed it down right where I was, and did not think about it, because later on there will be resources you have to get in order to progress. One of them being iron, and it's all the way up here to get iron. Like, that's the closest place you can get iron, at least. And whenever I want to get iron, I have to go all the way. I can fast travel there, like I talked about, but then I have to, once I'm done collecting the resources, I have to run that all the way back to here, and it's terrible. I would recommend for your first castle somewhere around this Vampire Waygate in this general area, because that will give you better access to all of Farbane Woods, and you'll be a lot closer to the Dunley farmlands. It's much more central. I would say like right up in here somewhere where my mouse, if I'm squiggling my mouse, it was probably your best bet for a starter castle if the space is available on an online server. Single player server, you get, obviously wherever you want to play, wherever you want to place it. So that's like the basics of castles and stuff. Everything else will come pretty straightforward. Storage chests and this for sleeping and all this stuff. The game will walk you through most of that. And I'll get to some kink points in a second. Another thing to know when you're out walking around, obviously you can zoom in and out. Zooming in really has no purpose other than looking at your character. Cool, whatever. But the big thing to know about is, at least by default, if you hold right click, you can pivot the camera so you can get a better angle, so you can see where you're going better and not get ambushed, basically. And more importantly, you can turn the camera, which is really important, because when I first started playing, a lot of you might have this, say the camera, you have it set to north, and then you're walking to the side, and enemies appear so close that they just aggro instantly, basically. What you're supposed to be doing is, when you're walking around, you're supposed to be right-clicking and turning the camera like this. It makes it much easier to explore without getting just ambushed by random enemies. That's a really important thing that I would recommend doing for any beginner. You got to be able to know about that. Other than that, the point of this game really is to just kind of follow the quest, explore, build up your castle. Eventually, you'll get like walls and stairs. You can go. Another important thing for beginners, over here on the right are all of your different tabs. The most important ones are going to be building, which is also B by default, and then tab to open up your inventory and look at things, all your gear, stuff like that. You have your clan tab where, play with other players, abilities, you can change out abilities. You have 2 basic abilities. You have a travel ability and ultimate ability. You just drag them down in order to change them out if you want to do this. You unlock them from fighting what's called V-blood enemies. Eventually you'll get this thing called a blood altar. You'll get to track enemies. You track them, and then this little weird thing will point to what direction they're coming, what direction to go from here to get to them, and you just kind of follow that till you find them. V-blood enemies are how you unlock new stuff in the game. So new powers, new structures, new recipes, stuff like that. That is going to be a huge point in the game for progression. Make sure to, that's basically your progression. Just go through here and kill all these V-Blood enemies. That's like basically how to progress in the game other than the main story quests up here. Also about building, so we hit B to open up this. There's, fundamentals, there's stairs. You can make double layer castles, you can make walls, you can make under castle, you get the fancy ones, which are really important later on, or have roofs and things. Windows, wallpapers. You'll unlock more of these at research desks, things like that. You'll get out in the world, you'll get books. I think I have some sitting around to show you actually in one of these unorganized storage chests. You'll have things like this, like red chairs. If bring this to a study, which I don't have yet actually, to unlock red chairs and things like that. So you'll find these inside of random chests inside of these places, like the bandit armory, stuff like that. There'll be random chests in there. Sometimes they'll just have one of these books. So that's another way to progress as far as the building and all that type of stuff. Down at the bottom is your hotbar. Your hotbar is also, if you open your inventory, this top row is going to be your number key options. So those are, set them to what you want, like a sword and the bow. So I can press 3 and now I have the bow equipped. I can press 1, I'm at the sword. And also when you have those equipped, down here are your weapon abilities. Whatever you have for the weapon abilities, like this sword I'm using right now only has whirlwind, which is this. The bow has, I have it on cooldown, but the bow has like a volley attack, which I can use in 1 second, like that. And so on and so forth, that type of thing. And then your inventory, you have this much space. There's no weight or anything. It's just a matter of slots. And then over here's all your stats and stuff. And then your gear, pretty straightforward stuff. It has gear level, mainly just gives you health for the armor. That's pretty much mostly what it does, at least in the beginning. Durability, you can repair it. Down at the bottom of your inventory, like right where my mouse is, you'll see it down there when I mouse over this. There's options for repairing it, dropping it, unequipping it, moving it. Repairing is the only real thing to think about. They do break eventually. You will encounter that, and you'll want to repair it for your better gear instead of throwing it away. Depending on what gear it is, it'll show what it needs to repair. Like this one needs, where it's at right now, only needs 1 leather, 1 copper ingot, 1 quartz thread to repair. So that's important to keep up with your gear. Crafting, this is only for basic stuff like your hand crafting basically. The only thing from here in the beginning is making vermin salve. I mean, you'll make all this gear once, but after that you'll like almost never come back to the screen. But vermin salve is something you can make to heal yourself. Pretty nice to remember that's there. You just need a rat, plant fiber, and bone. So that's pretty much everything with that part of this game. So let's get to the last part I can think to tell you about here is this thing down here, the blood pool. So this just slowly runs out while playing the game. It's like how much blood you have. And in order to get more, you have to feed on enemies. It doesn't have to be humans. It just can't be undead. It has to be a creature, or a human would be a warrior or a rogue. I can't think there's another one. I can't remember. And there's kind of some elements to this. So based on what type of enemy you get, there'll be different buffs. So if it's a creature like a deer or a bear or a wolf, then it could potentially give you movement speed, increased sun resistance rating, damage reduction, increased health regeneration, and boost all effects. Then the last one would be make all those do even more than they do. How big those bars get filled, like you see my movement speed's at halfway there. All that's based on what's called blood quality, which you can see where my mouse is. You can also see, I can't see, but right up where my mouse is right there when I mouse over this, 46%. That is something you'll see on enemies when you're out running around. Enemies will have a blood quality level. So if I go out and I find a wolf or something like that, then you'll be able to see they have blood quality. I'm just going to show you how to feed on one of these enemies. So for example, there's a wolf, and when I get him low, it'll tell me what his blood quality is, but there's actually this really cool trick. If you mouse over them, at the top of the screen, it'll tell you what the enemy is and what their blood quality level is. This wolf is 8%. So what you have to do to feed on him is you get him low enough, and it'll pop up this option to feed. Default key is F. You press that and just wait, and you'll eat their blood. That'll fill your blood pool back up to 10 liters. It'll convert it to whatever it was. In this case, it was a creature. Now the blood quality is 8%, and now the buffs I get are way less than before. The last thing I fed on was like a really high quality one, 43%. So, this was a downgrade, but you got to fill your blood pool back up eventually. So you can't just, get some 100% one and just stick with it forever. You got to keep on finding new ones. But it's basically just RNG. When you go around and you find enemies and you mouse over and look at them, it's just like, it's not that it's totally random. Like, some enemies have a higher chance of being high quality than others. Of course, that's literally the only enemy in this area, but some enemies have higher quality than others on average. Like, deer tend to suck almost always. Wolves have a better chance, and bears have a better chance, you know, that type of thing. Also, when you kill enemies, they drop loot, by the way. Pretty straightforward. I don't even know if I should explain that. One other thing I really should mention at the top right is the sundial. During the day, you will die if you go out in the sun. It doesn't kill you immediately. It just, you know, takes a moment, and that's where sun resistance comes into play. But you can still run around during the day by just going in the shadows of things, going from shadow to shadow to shadow. That's like, it's not a big deal. But fighting enemies during the day, now that sucks. It's really annoying trying to fight enemies during the day because your movement is very limited by using shadows. So be aware of that. Also, as far as those V-Blood enemies, I would highly recommend killing that Alpha Wolf one as soon as possible because he's the equivalent of your mount. He'll give you in this contextual menu, you hold down, it's left control by default. There's all these options, and you'll get wolf form, which is basically the equivalent of having a mount, makes you run faster. I would highly recommend getting that as soon as possible. Also, speaking of that contextual menu, in here you have Blood Mend and Exposed Vein by default. You'll unlock other things too later on for killing V-Blood bosses, but Blood Mend is something important to know about. This will heal you when you take damage, and then I'm already at max, so I'm not going to heal myself when I do it, but that will drain your blood pool in return for HP. And that brings me to a thing with HP real fast. So HP, actually, as you take damage, you'll have maximum HP and your current HP. So your maximum HP, once you lose enough, the maximum HP will also start to come down, which you'll see here in a second when they beat on me. So that max came down some, and now my max is not my full 268. Instead, my max can only go up to a certain amount. Now, that cannot be restored while you're in combat. So you don't want to get low in combat because you won't be able to bring your max health back up until you get out of combat. There's an icon down here for in combat to know if you're in or out of combat. So when I'm out of combat, I can heal, and you'll see it'll bring my max health back up too. You can kind of barely see it there, but now my max health is back up to full. So when you're in combat, you're going to want to just stay as high HP as possible, because if you lose that max HP, then even if you heal in the middle of the fight, it'll only bring you back up another like 30 health. It's not going to bring you back up to full. So it's really weird, but it's important to keep your health as high as possible at all times. Also about sun being burnt in the sun. This is what it looks like to be burnt in the sun. You have a decent amount of time before the sun actually does the damage, and then it just starts doing damage over time like that, and you got to just get into a shadow in order to, you know, stop dying. And other than that, some kink points in the game to know about. You'll get to a point that you'll need leather, and there's a V-Blood boss at the Trapper Camp. I mean, this is kind of getting into spoilers, though, so be aware of that if it's a big deal. Spoilers matter. Do you want a survival game? I'm not sure, so be aware. And you'll run into another one, which is iron, I mentioned earlier. The only easy way to do it is to get through the iron progression of the game is to go to the haunted iron mine, and then just break boxes and loot chests to get iron at first. Additionally, if you happen to get lucky from one of these V-Blood enemies and get a recipe for a tier 4 weapon, then you can use, it'll be like a merciless, it'll be called. Then you can actually break the iron ore nodes in the iron mine, and then the iron progression won't be bad at all. You can just go there one time, just slowly break them all with a crossbow or some random thing that's tier 4, and then you'll be able to get all the iron in one trip and just be done. So yeah, those are like the two biggest kink points I can. Oh, the other one is greater blood essence and unsullied hearts. I've actually have a video about it because it was kind of crazy. There's a point in the game where in order to do these quests up here, you need, even the one I'm stuck at right now, I need 4 of them, and I've just been lazy, I haven't done it yet. You'll need greater blood essence, which you can make. You can make it at a blood press under refinement, and there's blood press, and it'll use unsullied hearts at first. And the best way to get unsullied hearts is to just farm the V-Blood enemies. Just go out, farm V-Blood enemies. I would recommend, there's a Lydia the Chaos Archer. She wonders, and you would kill her and then go to the copper mine and kill the guy there. If you happen to get Alpha Wolf while you're out, some other boss, kill them too if you can. And then run back to your castle and then track Lydia again. And by that time, they'll all respawn, and you just keep doing that. the V-Blood bosses have like a 1 in 3 chance maybe of dropping unsullied hearts, and you need 4 of those to get greater blood essence. So you're gonna be farming V-Blood enemies at that point, that stage of the game. Later on though, there's a recipe to convert normal blood essence into greater blood essence, and that comes from a vampire hunter guy. His name's Tristan the Vampire Hunter, I think. But he's level 46, so you won't be able to kill him for a very long time. But once you kill him, then getting greater blood essence is way easier. So those are the biggest things you'll encounter early on. So if you even remember me telling you this at that point, that those, you know, or you can come back to this video later because you remember this video said what it was, but you don't remember what it was, and just come back and, you know, watch the video again. And one last thing to touch on real fast would be servants. I know at some point you guys will have that question. Now, I'm going to make a whole video about servants because it's actually kind of complicated. But when you get that greater blood essence kink point, it's to make a servant coffin. And in order to bring a servant back, you'll need this dominating presence skill, which you'll get from a V-Blood enemy. I can't even remember which one. One of these early game V-Blood enemies will give you the dominating presence, and then you can use that in order to. I cannot remember who gave it to me, but one of these guys gave me the dominating presence, and then, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it was from the quest. I can't remember. One of those things gave me dominating presence. Once you have that, though, then you will weaken an enemy below 30%, swap the dominating presence, and then use Kiss of the Vampire on them, which is a ranged skill like that. And then they'll beat on you for a second, and then you just walk them back to the servant coffin, and the conversion takes like an hour and a half. And then you'll have this servant. And based on where they came from and what type they are and what their blood quality was, they'll have different stats and things. So that's like a quick summary of that, of how that's going to work. But I'll make a full video about that because that's actually a pretty complicated thing. So, yeah. That's everything I think to tell you, though, about this game and the beginner's stuff. Like, I mean, there's obviously more to go into, but we're getting beyond the scope of a beginner's guide at this point. So I just wanted to get you started on how this works. How crafting works. You know, you put down a furnace, for example, and then interact with it. I guess crafting, I should talk about, you know, throw in some mats, make sure this is check green. It'll craft things. I mean, it's pretty straightforward stuff. Make sure you have blood in your castle heart in order to make sure that everything's working and stuff and it's not decaying. I mean, yeah. That's everything I think to tell you guys. Hopefully this beginner guide helped. Hopefully you have a better idea of how everything works in this game. And because this game actually was a little bit overwhelming at first. I remember the first like 12 hours, I was like, what the hell? Like, I were looking up how to find stone dust before I realized I can actually go to the map and mouse over places to see what they drop. You know what I mean? So, I definitely understand why someone would be looking up a beginner's guide. So, hopefully it helps you out. That's everything I can tell you. Hopefully now you have a better idea of how everything works in the beginning of V Rising.